We are back with another episode of the New Stack Agents, and this time we've got Jyoti Bansal with us. And Jyoti, we've done this a few times, you and I, over the years.
Hey, great to see you, Frederick. Yes.
Same here. Same here. First time we did this, you just reminded me earlier on, was in Vancouver in 2017 or 18, I forget.
Probably 18, yes.
Yeah, I remember you were delayed to get to that flight, and I gave you a hard time, as you also reminded me, because you had just sold AppDynamics for $3.7 billion, and you spent your time waiting for an Air Canada flight to get to Vancouver.
Yeah. Well, I still fly commercial. That's why not, right?
That's the way to go. It's you can afford first class now.
Yes,
there you go. There you go. Yeah, stepping up in the world. Absolutely. Well, the reason I really wanted to get you on the show was because, you've done this for a long time. You did AppDynamics. Now you're doing Harness. And when it comes to building software right now, it's, everybody's using these AI tools to build the software, but it's really the delivery pipeline that's super interesting to me, because I think that's where that's where a lot of the bottlenecks are still, right? So I think we should talk about that. But before we do that, Harness is now, just doing math in my head here, but 7-8 years old. Did you think about AI at the beginning, or at the time machine learning and deep learning and generative AI was on nobody's radar yet at the time?
Yeah, of course, LLMs, generative AI wasn't. But it's interesting, and I remind everyone that when Harness was launched out of stealth, this was 2017. So the headline in our press release was Harness brings artificial intelligence to continuous delivery. This was end of 2017, and the reason we had that, because that was the core of our CD, continuous delivery solution, of how we verify if a deployment is going to break something or not using AI. But AI was not LLMs at that time; it was neural net space mostly. You have a lot of ML. And we have been at the forefront of that. Then when we launched our CI, continuous integration, we looked at, and this was like 2020, of how we speed up the builds. And we looked at an AI model called test intelligence to speed up the builds on figuring out based on what code changed, what tests you need to run. So you're not running unnecessary tests, and you can speed up builds by 4x, 5x. So we have been working on AI even pre-LLMs, and that's sometimes people forget that it's not that LLMs are the first time a use of AI and ML for software engineering, software delivery was possible. It was possible before. Of course, now we are in this 100x, 1000x turbocharged environment of what AI can do.
Yeah, and still sometimes it feels some of the things we're trying to solve would be easily solved with just machine learning as well, and a lot of companies try to shoehorn generative AI into that world. Yeah,
I think a big part is I always tell our teams it's about solving the problem. It doesn't really matter how we solve it. Some problems are best solved with agents. Some problems are best solved with maybe agents are not the right things. Some things is called combination of agents and other algorithms. Some things combination of ML. Some things are about deterministic automation. If you are using AI and it takes because AI takes time to resolve and determine something, and it could be that it's taking 30 seconds, and you just deterministically write it. It may take 1 second. And does the user want to wait for 1 second, or user want to wait for 30 seconds? So we also have to make the determination in some cases where is AI the right thing to figure it out for the first time, and then you save it, so then it's deterministic and faster, without AI. So AI is not the end all thing. It's the means to what problem you want to solve.
Yeah. It might be the end to all things at some point. That's a different conversation. Now, as you started getting into adding generative AI into your product, how did you think about that? What kind of process did you go through, and when did you even make that determination that now was the right time to do that?
Yeah, I think the way I would first describe how we think of the problem space at Harness is really breaking into two parts. Software engineering, there's the inner loop of software engineering, which is developers writing code on their laptops. And then there's outer loop of software engineering, once the code is written on a developer laptop, that code goes into a process, a delivery process that will ship that code to production. So many times people ask me, okay, what's the big deal on the outer loop? And almost every engineering organization at scale, about 60 to 70% of the time goes in the outer loop, and only about 30-40% in the coding on the on in the inner loop. So why does it take 60-70% of the time? And then it takes so much time because there's so many workflows and tasks you have to do to make sure that the code is ready to ship to your consumers. And there will be 8 different kind of testing tasks, from integration testing, load testing, API testing. You have all kind of security tasks, from code security, vulnerability scans, open source library checks, API security scans, compliance approvals, all kind of things. Then you have the deployments. You have to deploy the code changes. You have to deploy, run feature flags and feature experiments. You have to do database deployment changes. Infrastructure as code, canary deployments, blue-green deployments, rollbacks, artifact management. And then you have to do all kind of cost optimization stuff like cloud cost. The list goes on. There are 30, 35 workflows. And that's why it takes so long in that process. So when we looked at, always at Harness, our goal was can we streamline that entire process? You have the, you have coding in the inner loop, and then you have the delivery of the code in the outer loop. And can we take each of these workflows and reduce the developer toil and automate them? And we started doing that with code deployments with CD, and then CI, then feature flags, and we have 16 different modules in our platform to solve all these problems. So when we started looking at generative AI, of course, we started with can we bring LLMs to simplify the configuration of something? Can you create pipeline easily with it? Can you fix security vulnerabilities with LLMs? And that was the first set of use cases that we started with. Mm-hmm. Then we over time became very clear, many of these problems, agents or agentic AI is the right solution. So we have been building a lot of agents to solve the problems. And now the way people consume our platform is through a library of AI agents. We call it Harness AI. It's these are all interconnected agents. These are about a dozen or so agents that are at the top layer, like agents for DevOps tasks, for SRE, for testing, for FinOps, for security, for all these tasks. And then there we have purpose-built agents that are for smaller tasks under them. Say if you go to our AI, Harness AI, and say, create me a deployment pipeline for my application. And it starts with, okay, what is your application? What does deployment pipeline for your company means? What are your security standards? What are your compliance standards? What does your production infrastructure look like? So we have to have all of that. First of all, we have to have small agents for each of those tasks. To create a deployment pipeline, we need to do 30 different tasks to do that. So we have small agents for each one of those that we will farm out the tasks to. So these are purpose built for those. But they also use your knowledge and your context. What we create what we call a STLC knowledge graph that we create for the customer, which is what does your infrastructure look like? What services depend on what other services? What environments you run on? What tools you have for security testing? What's your SLAs around different things? So we have all of that information. So now these agents are using that information for a smaller context for that particular task, because you can't give a big context to in one big agent. You have to break it into smaller agents and give them the right context at the right time. Mm-hmm. So that's how kind of our AI works, which is a lot of agents who are purpose built for these delivery tasks, and then they use the right knowledge graph and the right context from a engineering organization's information to do the right things.
So it's a few things to unpack there, I think. But one of those is you kind of mentioned agents are now one of the main ways to consume Harness as a product. How do you bring your customers along there? Because they've been used to a very different way for many years of working with these products. And they have to trust the agents too.
Yes,
to some degree, right?
I think a big part is understanding and making it clear to our customers, what do these agents do? Say when you go to an agent and where we, create a boundary, and we think right now the boundary is needed, may not be needed in future. It's just our agents are not doing a deployment in production. Our agents are creating a production deployment pipeline. So it's the production deployment pipeline is deterministic. It's auditable. It's there's every step that happens is kind of reviewed by someone from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective. So it's not that AI is just going and touching your production environments. People are not comfortable with that, and people probably should not be in many cases. For a long time. So the approach we take is AI agent's job is to help create the pipeline. That you review it, you edit it, you audit it, it's make sure it's all good, and then that is just running and doing your code deployments, infrastructure deployments, security approvals, all kind of things, right? If something goes wrong, like let's say a deployment failed, then the AI comes in to help you troubleshoot. So it can reduce the burden on you, like to fix the problem faster. Like maybe there's a problem in a configuration, problem in the code, problem in whatever, right? You have to do rollback, so then AI comes back in. So by creating what's the role of AI, that's where we get people more comfortable in that you still have an auditable, reviewable, human in the loop automation and pipeline that you could do. It's just easier to get there now with AI, and easier to manage it from an troubleshooting perspective.
Right, and we're still having the just deterministic tools available if I want to make changes and everything.
Yes,
right?
yes, and which you need to. I don't think the world is comfortable yet. We are working with think of 7 of the top 10 banks in the world. And yes, they are using AI for code generation, but see, the difference between AI for coding and the AI for soft delivery of the code is that AI for coding could be 95% accurate, and that's fine. It could be 99% accurate maybe in future. When you are delivering to production, one line of bug can bring the world down. Like you saw the CrowdStrike outage. It was really one line of bug. Like one line of bug can bring the world down. So you don't have room for error, right? So that's why you have all of these checks and balances and workflows that you need to build out. So you need the determinism there. You need the someone to approve and comply, and you have regulatory agencies that will that create the a lot of regulation around. Do you have the right processes to ship without and not introduce that 1 or 2 lines of bug in production and all those things.
Yeah, no, for sure. How did you decide how to prioritize what agent to start with? Because I was writing down a list of all the agents you have, and I got tired of it because, as you said, there's like a dozen at least at this point. But how do you decide to prioritize there, and how did you go about that?
Well, I think it depends on the biggest task we think people need to do first. So the number one is around setting up your pipelines. A deployment or a CI/CD pipeline is a very complicated pipeline to be fully automated. Like imagine if you are like a large bank or like a tech company, and you have to have developer writes code, and the code automatically goes all the way to production, and all the checks and balances and every single test is automated in the pipeline. That's a very complex process, and that's where Harness primary strength is and has been. And so our first set of agents that we prioritize are around those. Like, can we help you create those in a very systematic way, in a very easy way? And those agents are not easy agents to build, because there's a lot about understanding some enterprises policies and security controls and governance checks and all kind of things that are specific to an enterprise is what will require the agents to create the right set of things. That's definitely the first area. The second area is around testing. People are like, okay, I'm producing so much more code, but I really can't keep up with the testing. And yes, you can write some tests with the code generator that you used, but that doesn't work like that. You need the check and balance. You need the make sure you can keep up with the right kind of tests for the code that's coming in. And so we are helping with a lot of AI agents to help with testing, on resilience testing, on end-to-end testing. Unit testing, etc., are easier with AI, but let's say the end-to-end testing and resiliency testing and chaos testing, things like that.
Right.
The third area is around security. Like security is a lot of pain in the software delivery process. Code security, application security. With more AI, more vulnerabilities are coming in as well, more code coming in. So we put a lot of agents around, how do we prioritize security vulnerabilities? How do we automatically fix them? How do we detect them? How do we find what vulnerability is even reachable? Because people are like, there's too much noise around those kind of things. So I would say those are probably the top areas that we are seeing, immediate impact, and a lot of people, wanting AI to help through those.
Sure. And you just mentioned application security. You bought I forget how to pronounce it really. Quiet
Quite, yeah.
AI. Yeah, it's QWIET. I think if I remember it right.
Many people know the company as ShiftLeft because it used to be
Mhm.
called ShiftLeft before they changed their name, like, a couple of years ago.
Because everybody was shifting left and
Yes.
too much of that.
Uh-huh.
But what made you decide that you needed to acquire in that space over? Because you make a few acquisitions every now and
Yes.
then, but for the most
Yes.
part you build in-house, right? What made
Yes.
you decide that this was an acquisition?
I think the biggest problem in application security, many years ago, it used to be like, like some security tool that can find the vulnerabilities in your code. Now the problem has shifted to managing those vulnerabilities, where people don't know, like, there's so many vulnerabilities, like, and there's so many tools, and everyone is like, I have this 500 vulnerabilities, I don't even know which one to fix. And most of those vulnerabilities are not real. Like, what happens is, like, say if you're using an open source library that has 100 features and you're using 2 of the 100 features, and the security scanner will give you vulnerabilities of all the other 98 features you're not using as well, which you're never gonna touch ever. The code path will never get there. And that's becoming a big problem for, like, what we see a lot of people and lots of engineering teams drowning in that noise. So what we wanted to solve that problem, and has one of the best technologies in the world for that, for exploitability, exploitability and code reachability. They built a technology called code property graph, which is like, creates like a scan of, like, what code is reachable from what other pieces of code. So you can figure out, like, what vulnerabilities are important, what vulnerabilities should be prioritized, what are reachable, what are exploitable. So now we are bringing that into our AI, to help you prioritize the vulnerabilities, catch them early on and fix them automatically and things like that.
Got it. Now, with all of these agents available to your customers, what does the user experience now look like? Do they touch all of those agents? Are there different users for each of them? What does it actually look like now in practice to use all of them?
That's a great question. Like, in practice, our users don't see any of these agents. Our users see just one harness AI. And and the harness AI is like what we call it, like, it's a unified agent that he combines all of them together. And it's like, more and more of our users will start just using from, like, it's just one AI interface, like, the way you go to chatgpt.com and where you can go and start doing things. But of course, we are giving you, like, tasks that we know that most likely you're going to do, like, what we think is the most likely task that you would do as a user. So one of the things, interesting things with AI is, like, AI does get better if you learn the memory of what a user does. Like, so in our case, we look at, like, this particular user mostly spend time in this one project. They mostly work on the production deployment pipelines. So now we know, like, the most likely tasks that they're gonna ask our agents to do, our AI to do, are these few tasks. So we are already suggesting them. So you don't even need to type the prompt. Like, we're suggesting these the most likely things. You can just click on them and do those. But let's say if you look at, okay, this user mostly is focused on cost optimization. Every time they come in and they focus on, FinOps and cost optimization. Now we just suggesting those tasks. But interestingly, the experience now becomes like a very simple experience of harness AI. Like, the agents are just internal detail of how harness AI is forming the task to. Like, when you go to AI and say do something, it's finding the right agents, to break the task and farming it to. And then those agents are farming into other sub agents, and who are farming into other sub agents. But they all becomes like one harness AI.
Got it. As you're
We do
building,
have a notion of, like, you can create your own autonomous agent and task with us. That's something we are launching more of those capabilities, where you can come in and say, create an autonomous agent to go and upgrade my code base from, like, from library version 1.7 to 1.8. And then, these agents can go in the background and do a lot of those tasks, make sure, like, all your testings are passing, your CI/CD, pipelines are all good with this chain and all those things. So yes, we have the ability when people can create their own agents now as well.
Got it. And at that point, you're also touching people's code then, which is interesting.
Yes. In some of the areas we are, yes.
One thing I've been thinking about a lot is how companies like yours have managed this transition also from a perspective of just the stack where you're building all of this on, and the talent inside of the company. How has that changed over the years?
Yeah, I think that's we have, as I said, like, Harness has been doing AI and ML, since the beginning, 2017. So we had a pretty strong AI, ML, data infrastructure kind of talent and team. So we had an advantage that compared to most companies in the developer tool space, we were already very very focused on how do we bring data, how do we bring ML, neural nets, AI to solve some of the problems. But yes, now we have to now it's much more AI than we used to do before. But one thing what we realize is almost all good engineers can become AI engineers, and they want to become AI engineers. Like writing agents is like becoming like writing any other code. It's not not the skills that people can't learn, and not the skills that people don't want to learn. So that's a good thing. So we look at you hire smart engineers, great engineers, and they learn how to build those. Yes, there is some work you need. You need some data infrastructure has to be very very solid. So you need the right data infrastructure people. You need to have some strong data scientists who understand the models very well. But we are not building any foundational models. It's many times people think of AI okay, we are building foundational models. We are not. We built on top of Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini, and we look at the problems we are solving are not at that layer. We don't need to. The problems we are solving are the deep domain expertise on software delivery, DevOps tasks, creating purpose-built agents, making sure we can create the right set of data and knowledge and context to pass these agents to solve real problems. And so yes, so we have to make sure our engineering culture, the engineering talent, how we do our work is aligned with all of that. And that's been a transformation. And our engineering team has done a great job in kind of transforming themselves to this very AI first thinking on how we do software engineering.
Yeah, AI first, also in terms of kind of how the business models are shifting a little bit, because these AI models are all consumption based. How is that changing? How it can, it costs you money to run all of these models, there's more and more tokens getting produced there. How do you think about that?
Yeah.
Is that shifting how you're?
Yeah, that's a great question. In our case, we were always consumption based in many ways. We are not, our primary pricing was never seat based. So let's say we always believed in first of all selling a modular platform. So we have these 16 17 modules in our platform for code deployments, for CI, for feature flags, for FinOps, for security testing, all kind of things. But that people can pick and choose what modules they want to consume, and that's how we were pricing. So that kind of already was aligned with for since the beginning, that's how we have been selling. And for each of the modules, the pricing was mostly not seat based. It was mostly around, what do you do? For our deployments, how many services you're deploying. For our FinOps, how much of the cloud cost you're optimizing with us, how many feature experiments you're running for our feature flags, things like that. So we were in some ways, we were already in a good place that it was, our platform was priced by the different modules and how you would consume them. So now, yes, there is AI is big part of the, how you use them. We have taken a point of view of in the consumption pricing of our modules, AI is built in. So we don't charge you separately for AI. Some of the vendors will charge you this is our non-AI version, and if you add AI, that's the additional price of this. Right. We don't do that. AI is included because the primary reason we also didn't want to encourage our engineers and our product managers. So think of two experiences. One is with AI and one is without AI. We think of let's think of one experience is that where AI is so native to that experience. And and so the AI cost is included in the consumption of the capability. So when you're doing continuous delivery with us and we are deploying your services, which is how we were charging before, now we include the AI part, the AI agents as part of that.
Got it. Yeah, and you don't want to have to maintain two different versions either of AI and non-AI. That would get unwieldy pretty quickly. As you're looking at how customers are using the product right now, any surprises in how they're using these agents, or are they acting differently from what you expected sometimes? What are you seeing there?
I think probably the number one surprise, we took a lot of our capabilities and exposed it through an MCP server, a lot of what our agents can do. And I was kind of surprised that even in very large enterprises where you would think like, slow moving enterprises, the adoption of integrating AI in their tool chain and how they adopt is pretty high. Like, the usage of our MCP for people to integrate and build their own, systems is very high. We had like this, one large customer, one of the largest airlines, they take our AI and then they create like their own like internal AI toolchain for all their engineers to do everything in there, like, that integrates with our MCP. And we are seeing a lot of that, like a lot of creativity on like, how people want to transform the, the software engineering practices. Yeah, it's almost everywhere. It comes with the realization. The first step is AI for coding. Everyone has done it at this point. And then people realize, okay, we have done AI for coding, but we're not really shipping any faster. And it's we are creating more code, but it's not like we're shipping any faster. So what's the problem? And then you realize, more code doesn't mean like you can test it fast enough, you can deploy it fast enough, you can secure it, you can compliance and all kind of things that need to be done on the code, right? So now it's like when people start realizing, okay, that's the next level that you need to, and we're seeing like people being very creative and people finding ways to adopt that and integrating in their processes through our MCP, and quick adoption of that.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why is it the uptake has been so crazy fast, especially something like MCP, which nobody really thought about 10 months ago?
It creates a flexibility to integrate. Like, it's MCPs, I would say, like, it's people used to build with APIs and all kind of things before. Now it's like, MCP is the new API and it's so easy to integrate. And, you can build your, it's in the end, it's all about, passing the right context in, to whatever you're using, right? So the MCP allows you to set the right context, bring the other agents that people are building into your workflow in the way you would do it. So, people used to build their own portal for their developers. Like, you will create like, oh, this is our portal. That's where all our engineers come and do the job. Now the portal becomes their AI, and that integrates with all the other AIs systems that are out there, and that's MCP really helps in solving that.
Yeah. Wonder what that means for Backstage as a developer.
Backstage is great. We are actually one of the biggest provider of enterprise Backstage.
Really?
we do have a module for IDP which is built on Backstage and making Backstage approachable and usable in enterprises without all the like 1 year, 2 years of work that people have to do otherwise. So, and we're bringing the same AI to that. Actually, one of the agents that we launched is what we call the knowledge agent, where you can, it just really, uses the, built on top of Backstage IDP that we have, where like you can ask the questions to the catalog, like, about your services, your environments, your infrastructure, all the things. And, you can automate workflows for new developers to onboard and all that through the help of this, and a knowledge agent.
Got it. How much code are you writing internally with AI at this point? Not you personally. I mean, if you are,
as a company, I would say we probably every developer is using AI at Harness. We do debate these days, like, do we make it like, it's required, from like it's desired to it's required. It's at this point like 90% or 95% are heavily using anyways. There you have like 30-40 people are like who are really, really power users and so effective, like, they are like, and mostly like, we provide flexibility to our developers. Cloud Code is used heavily, Cursor used, Windsurf used very heavily, and people find different kind of ways. But we did an internal estimate of like, how much code is being written through AI, and roughly we estimate about like, at least in the 40% plus is being written through AI now.
That's quite a bit.
I do think it might increase over time. So
yeah. What do you think makes a developer especially productive when they use these tools? What are you seeing there? Like, what are some of those best practices you've learned from some of those really effective developers?
I think that's a great question, and something that we look at, like, okay, we have some developers who are very, very effective. So what are they doing? And now we are doing like, okay, why don't you do like a lunch and learn and teach people like, why are you so effective than others? Like, and most people are figuring out how to be effective now. So it's not really like a year ago, this question was like, some people were, the delta was high, but now the delta is shrinking. Most people are starting to get more effective. But big part is like, configuring, like people spending a little bit time to configuring, setting the right rules.md or like, setting the parameters of like what you would like it to be. Like if you go to the some coding agent and say do this without setting the parameters, it just the back and forth will take longer. If you spend like 4 hours writing up all the how you write the code, you want the code to come out in overall, like in what your company's patterns and policies and rules and all that, the code will come out better, and like you don't need to do as much back and forth. So that's some of that I would say is probably the biggest best practice I would I'll tell from a code perspective. But also a big part of like the skill for a developer is how to break the task into smaller tasks. Like yes, we would imagine like everyone can say, oh, I can give a very big task to a some kind of code assistant, but reality is then if you give a very big task, they're not going to do a good job. So it's like how do you like just having that right mindset of how do you break the task into 5-10 smaller tasks that AI will do a good job in writing code for, and you give the right parameters around that, set the right rules around it, and then it's I look at like the best engineers, their job is becoming that, like how do you break the task into smaller tasks is one, and then how do you review the work that's coming out of it, and like and that's the job. So and of course, at Harness, we have a huge advantage of our tool chain for the delivery process. So we use our own tool chain, of course, and we are heavily optimized on those. We can ship fast, and all of the burden that comes from a lot of the other toil, we are operating, I would argue, at the one among the lowest toil. By heavily optimizing using our tool chain on like deployments and builds and testing and FinOps and security and governance, all those kind of things. So that makes developers more effective. And kind of what we preach, that there's AI for coding and there's AI for software delivery to ship that code. So
Right.
we are using AI on both sides now.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't, to be honest. But yes. Now, are you coding? I don't know, again, or are you coding more now thanks to these tools?
Yes, I wasn't coding actively for some time. When for my first company, AppDynamics, I wrote like 50% of the code for our V1 product, it's because it was that we were a small team and I wrote a lot of code. But not like at Harness, I haven't written much code. But now with AI, yes, I'm let's say I'm starting to get dangerous again there. But I would say the bigger thing that I'm using AI is actually product management and specs. It's a lot of times, like say if you have to write a spec for something, it's time consuming. It will take me a lot of time to like. So I would normally go to a product manager and say, hey, we should be thinking about this, and the product manager will then do a lot of back and forth, and you have like maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we have some spec produced. Now what I find is like I can actually do it myself in like an hour of back and forth with AI, like a better skeleton than like, so that's it's easier for me to communicate. And now I can take that and give it to someone, and and so the back and forth gets cuts down. Like what used to take us like 3-4 weeks for back and forth and finding like let's build this capability or something like that, right? Now that could be completely short circuited and done much faster. So that's yes, I do think AI plays a big role, but for me personally, I would say the product management and spec side of things, I find it, I'm using it much more.
What happened to that product manager you used to go to before? I guess the question is, where do you fall on that spectrum of AI augmenting versus replacing human labor?
We are still in the AI augmenting. I think it's just the velocity gets higher. Like we are, so the interesting part of AI is the pace and the competitive pressure and everything is much higher. Like what you would say, you have a year to deliver something like that, some capability in the market, or even think of like okay, we need to change our product or our company to do something, and it's a 2-year timeline. That timeline has shrunk down to like 6 months for everyone. So there are more things to do. Like it's just the bar is much higher. Everything is moving so much faster, and if you don't, as a company, as a business, any organization, you have a problem. So I don't think we are. It's kind of the appetite for like doing more things is taking up any productivity gain. Like so, it's all comes to like if you get more productive, what do you do? Like you have less people, or you do more work. I think at this point, I'm seeing mostly like there is not of like, you're doing less, you need less people, you're just doing more work, and which is great. Like, you're more productive, you're doing more work.
For sure, for sure. You're also an active investor, and just maybe to cap this off, I'm kind of interested in what you're seeing out there in the market right now, what you're interested in outside of harness, outside of CI/CD, maybe even. What are you interested in right now? Where are the highlights in this ecosystem?
Yeah. It's so I co-founded a venture firm, Unusual Ventures, and we invest in early stage companies, seed stage. And when people ask me what's unusual about Unusual Ventures, the primary thing is that it's that we work very, very closely with the companies we invest in as their extended business arm, like extended sales, marketing, all those kind of functions to help the companies go from 0 to 1. So when we invest in that stage, it's a very exciting time right now. Like, but we are very excited about, some AI infrastructure, but a lot of it is like vertical AI solutions, like, which is for domain specific things, like, whether it's, healthcare or finance or, manufacturing, like how do you take AI and create like, specialized solutions for problems for different domains, different industries, different kind of things. There's a lot of AI infrastructure work that we are investing in as well. It's great time. Like, it's kind of interesting. Like, I asked our team, like our investment team, like, you get all these investment pitches of like what percentage of our the pitches we get are AI. And I thought maybe we'll get I get an answer like maybe 50%, 60%, something. And the answer came out from our team, 100%. There's not a single pitch that's not AI. So, it is kind of clear, like, everyone is bringing some AI element into like, how would you solve the next generation problem? So it's we are investing very heavily into all these kind of, whether it's like, AI to rethink CRM, AI to rethink, SRE, AI to rethink, all kind of things that people are thinking about AI to rethink manufacturing, or like, industrial design and all, and we are making investments in all these areas.
Yeah. I was at the OpenAI Dev Day earlier this week, and somebody asked Sam Altman said that some areas of AI are a little bit bubbly, I think he called it at the time. I asked him which ones those were, but he didn't answer that question. But I'm going to ask you the same question, though. Do you think there's it feels like if we're in a bit of a bubble, but how do you think?
I think all areas are bubbly in AI. But and bubble sometimes is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, let's say if something is a big disruptive technology, bubble happens because people are expecting it to be, go from 1 to 100 in 2 years, but maybe it will go from 1 to 100 in 5 years. But still is going from 1 to 100. Like, like internet is an example of like, yes, people thought like, everyone would be doing all their lives on internet like next year, but it took longer. But we are doing all our lives on internet, so that did happen, right? And internet was a disruptive technology, even though we had the .com bubble and the .com crash and all. But the impact of .com is real, So I definitely put AI in that, like, yes. So there is that bubble element, like, on the funding valuations and all those. The reality is like, if there is it's real that many problems will be solved with AI in much better way. But there are 20 people trying to solve that problem, 20 startups, 20 companies. Our 23 will succeed, or 4 will succeed, 5 will succeed at most, right? So the other 15 will fail. And that is the reality of the innovation ecosystem. And that's totally fine. That's how that's where you get like, competition. That's how you get like, why the startup ecosystem so thrives, because of the survival of the fittest on that. But 15 companies are going to die. And, that's what people are not really realizing that yet, like, on any of those problems. But we'll have some big winners come out, like companies that will succeed. We'll have, many incumbents will also figure out, like, what to do. They will pick up some of these innovations and all. So everything is happening, which is valid, but things might be happening much more than would eventually be needed. And that's where the bubble is. And that's probably okay.
Absolutely. Well, on that positive note, talking about dying startups and also succeeding ones, thank you so much for joining us today, Jyoti. It's always fun chatting with you.
Hey, same here. Great chatting with you today.
Same here. Thank you.